So Tarja is a senior principal scientist at the VTT with over 20 years of research experience in the domain of sustainable built environment. And you will now bring us a little bit more of the business side, market insights on district refurbishment. And the previous speakers have been very friendly for the last one before the coffee break. So you also get 16 minutes if you'd like to.
Thank you very much. So the district level energy refurbishment may require some new roles and new ways of working, and we try to find out what supports and what hinders district level energy refurbishment of buildings, and would it be possible to make business on it, and are there any interested parties in the market. There are some things that drive district level approaches. The sustainable strategies of cities, for example, in the city of Helsinki, there is a target to save 60% greenhouse gases until 2035, and there are three main focus areas, but two of those are energy supply and energy refurbishment of buildings. Also, sustainable infill strategies of growing cities support this idea. And again, for example, the city of Helsinki is aiming at building 7,000 new homes annually during coming years, and a big part of this is planned to be built in existing urban areas. And then, of course, as we know, there is a huge backlog of renovation in urban districts from 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And this, of course, forms the basis for district-level approaches. So what we mean by district-level energy refurbishment is concurrent refurbishment of several buildings in the same district with a view to achieve common benefits. And common benefits include first cost savings with the help of district level approaches. You may be able to make use of joint ventures in the procurement of design and construction, and thus how save cost. For example, in Helsinki, in Maunula case, they reported that they were able to save a bit over 10% of cost when they made use of so-called group building in refurbishment of altogether 7 buildings. And then with the help of district scale approaches, it's also more easier to find optimum solutions for renewable energy systems when you are able to find, for example, the positions and systems of solar energy, ground heat, storages, etc. on district scale. Also, infill building is one of the possibility to finance district level or energy refurbishment or refurbishment of buildings, and it may be that you have better options for infill building, and you may be better able to avoid that kind of solutions. For example, that infill building in one plot blocks out possibilities for infill building in neighboring plots, or you cause problems for neighboring plots, like for example because of shading. And anyway, the overall solutions of buildings and parking places are easier when you look at the whole area at the same time. And last but not least, the district level approaches, as already been said here, will come not only beneficial but necessary when a radical change towards energy efficiency and zero energy building is taken, and in the future at least, buildings will be parts of energy systems, not only using but also generating and storing energy, and to manage the whole system requires absolutely district level approaches. But there may also be barriers. We have earlier studied barriers for district-level approaches in 8 European countries, and we found out that there are 3 main barriers which are similar in all over Europe, and the most important one is the presence of several owners which may disagree about the start of the projects or process. On the other hand, an important barrier seen is also that there is a lack of that kind of actors who may initiate these kinds of projects. And then finally, one barrier is also seen that there are some inflexibility in town planning processes and practices of building permissions. And that's why we made a pre-assumption that a new role is required, and we call this role as an activator. And then what would be the role and activities of this activator? Who would be the partners and clients or customers? What would be the most attractive value propositions of this actor, and where from would come the revenue streams? In order to find answers for these questions, we carried out interviews in Finland. We interviewed people who had good expertise in neighbourhood level refurbishment projects, infill building, or joint ventures in procurement of building services. And the interviewees represented different groups. They represented municipalities and energy companies, and on the other hand, they represented contractors and engineering companies and project managers. And when designing the interview process, we pictured 3 different kinds of alternative models for this new role, this activator, depending on the extensiveness of the activities during the process, whether, let's say, only assessing potentials and motivating participants to start the process and to trying to collect the group of owners, or also providing services for the projects, or also coordinating the project. And now I start to shortly summarize what we learned on the basis of the interviews. So the most potential areas for for district level approaches would be suburban or urban districts from 1970s, where the need for renovation is the highest, and often also the attitudes towards infill building are more permissive. Also, it would be necessary that the value of flats is relatively high, or at least not low, and especially from the viewpoint of contractors, the potential is rather limited to growing areas where there is a possibility for infill building. We found also that there are some doubts against our pre-assumptions. So although it is true that infill building is one potential instrument to finance, on the other hand, the expectations are often also unrealistic, and the potential should be should be high compared to the area to be refurbished, and also if you are not able to take into account properly the parking solutions and their cost, the expectations may be unrealistic because these solutions may actually finally kill the whole potential. Also, it was admitted that it's possible to save cost because of joint ventures in procurement, but on the other hand, it is possible only with the help of very well organized processes. The profile of an activator is very demanding, and like was said, one of the interviewees, I read it my word by word, the profile is extremely difficult as you should emphasize the problems of the common man and at the same time have expertise in construction business, collaborate with different parties, be creative and innovative, and have extremely much time. So there were a lot of things that were said that this activator should fulfill and do. The activator should understand platform-based approaches and methods of empowering people. The activators should be able to organize participation processes and enable end users to tell their desires and requirements on the basis of their life and living conditions. The activators should also organize inquiries and workshops among the occupants, citizens living in the area and being owner occupants of the buildings who should participate in the projects. And in addition, the activators should also be able to do deep and realistic analysis of the refurbishment potentials, infill potentials, and potential solutions. So who would take this role? This role could be taken by that kind of parties that we interviewed. So it could be taken by contractors, engineering companies, or project managers. But even big companies are not able to work in these long processes in own risk. And this is actually the reason why the role of municipalities become very important. A lot of requirements were also listed with regard to what is hoped from municipalities. So the municipality should bring neutrality to the process by providing objective information about benefits and potentials. The municipalities should be proactive, far-seeing, and flexible in town planning and not too demanding in collecting land use fees. It was also suggested that the municipality should provide a facilitator for a process who works together with the housing companies and other actors and supports working together. So in that way, it was also suggested that the municipality would take the role of this activator in the very early phases of the process. The municipality should also be able to support platform-based approaches, and by that way they should, through these platforms, they should provide open data to support others to assess the possibilities and potential solutions. And on the other hand, with the help of these platforms, the municipalities should be able to support all to participate in the processes. Also, it might be useful or even necessary that there would be some kind of incentive available to attract the forerunner housing companies, and it could be something similar that has been in Finland, the elevator incentive, and also similar extensive information about the availability, the benefits and potentials of it. And then municipalities are also owners, big owners of residential buildings. These public residential rental housing companies should really show very strong leadership and demonstrate and invite others to district level refurbishment processes. Then about partners, the partners depend on, of course, what are the delivery models in which you work, but anyway, relevant partners would be like energy auditors, renewable energy system providers, designers, and of course, very importantly, like for example, financing organizations. The most desired or the important customers would be both public and private rental housing companies, because those are big actors and they own a lot of buildings and professional actors in the field. And these could also act as a kind of engines for the process. But then on the other hand, private housing companies form half of the potential customer segment. And as was said by one of the interviewees, but housing companies do not naturally seek for partners when they need to start refurbishment. And this forms a big problem. Because anyway, in all models of activator, the activator should get paid already in early phases of the process, and then the solutions that were suggested were that the activator should be hired by the municipality, or there should be incentives either to the housing companies or directly to the activators working, or the activator should be hired, for example, like in Finland by Motiva or some other organization, for example, for working for the mitigation of climate change. Anyway, the final customers should pay the process, and the financing instruments, this land development is one possibility to support the financing of the refurbishment projects. Anyway, it was also believed that in the future the financing possibilities will be developed, and there will be possibilities for some kind of green funding, or there will be some kind of ESCO type of actors in the field of district level refurbishment. And then about value propositions, this of course depends on to whom you are working, but important value propositions would be that about saving or increasing the value of the flats, changing a suburban district to urban to city village, improving living environment and well-being, for example, by providing new senior house for elderly flat owners, or making the refurbishment process very easy. So I come back to my first slide. So there are issues that support district level energy refurbishment of buildings, because it's in line with the sustainable development strategies of cities, and because it's also in line with sustainable urban growth or infill strategies of cities, and because there is this huge need for renovation in suburban and urban districts in many places. But on the basis of the studies that we made, there is also market interest for that, and there are at least some companies who think that it would be possible to make business on it, and it was believed that the urban renewal and the improvement of the well-being of citizens best happens with the help of district-level approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tarja, for a very concrete and comprehensive proposal for this activator model. Are there any activators in the room? What would you like to ask from Tarja?
Well, Tarja, you mentioned that in this Maunula case, the savings were about 10% from the contract.
Yeah, that was. I have not assessed it.
Okay,
It was
okay.
just
But
based
I
on.
wonder, came this savings through the learning process that the contractor had when they made this project? Since there were was it 8 or 7 buildings?
7 buildings.
7 buildings.
Altogether 400 flats. Yeah.
And the first building used, let's say, 1,000 hours, and for the last one, hopefully they survived with 300 hours. And,
Yeah.
and so that the savings can be also through the learning process.
Exactly. Yes. I haven't been assessing this case, but in the context of this project, we have been assessing possibilities, and this idea came also into our mind that this would be one of the important bases for savings. Of course, there are synergies, and if you have the procurement processes are very big, that of course then makes a basis for that. Yeah, but anyway, I think so too.
Nowadays, in a contracting, it's so that you made one contract and that's it. And in a way, all these energy renovation contracts, they are more or less pilots. Everyone is individual, and there are different contractors who are making those contracts. So, and then we miss the possibility for learning, so that they're the same group doing the same kind of things. And there is a huge potential.
Yeah, it would be really extremely valuable.
There was another comment.
You mentioned this is good for areas where value of the area is growing, or the potential is there. What about those areas where is still recession, or the city is not growing and the value is not potentially growing that much? What about those areas?
So it's certainly much more problematic. Of course, this infill building is not only the only possibility, but for certain areas this is really problematic.
In Twitter, there was discussion about similar examples of such sort of facilitating participation, and someone mentioned this study Luotsi that Helsingin kaupunki is now launching. Do you have any other examples also from different fields where similar approach has been done?
In Turku, I don't remember the name of the place, but there was some quite successful case where the whole area was renovated and yes, but that was not particularly studied here, but one of the interviewees had experience on the basis of that successful case.
Good, super interesting. Thank you once more, Tarja.
Thank you.